Welcome back if you are a subscriber, and hello and welcome if you are new. Today, in this video, I will be making 5 cards with 4 different designs. For my first card, I went ahead and used the gold flowers that were from the kit. I wanted the flowers to be kind of a frame on the card to kind of nest the sentiment in. To save time, I adhered those before the video started, and I layered them on the card so there were some that fell off the edge. So now that the glue is dried and that things are secure, I'm going to chomp them off. This card ends up being one of my favorite cards. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with these gold flowers because they are rather large and there isn't as big of a floral pattern like the other florals that are in the kit have. So I wasn't sure. So I kind of spread them out on a piece of paper, and that's how I kind of found inspiration for how the flowers ended up on the actual card. And of course, I'm going to use up some of my scrap papers from other cards and add a little bit of interest inside the card by adding some pattern paper. And this pattern paper matches the paper on the front of the card. When I'm making cards, I do have a tray like this that is a recycled lid to a box that I just keep my shapes in, and I keep them in the different sizes that they are. So these are kind of the long and skinnies, and the thicker rectangles, long rectangles, and the 6x6 papers. And I have that on hand just in case I would like to add anything. And when I am adhering things on, going to be using the Barely Art Precision Glue, and I'm going to be using my tweezers here from EK Tools. If you're interested in purchasing any of the tools, I have links in the description. And to finish off the inside here, I'm going to be using one heart from the card kit. I can't believe how many cards that I've made from this kit. Sometimes it can be overwhelming to look at materials and think, okay, well, there's 3 cards that are on the idea sheet that come with the kit, but what else can you do? And once you kind of start playing around with it, you can make so many cards. With this kit, I think I'm going to be ending up making about 36 cards. And I trimmed that pattern paper just to leave a little bit of green on the edge. Now I'm going to use my Barely Art glue again, and a jewel picker, and my tweezers to adhere the sequins from the kit to the center of the flowers to add a little bit of sparkle to the card. And that is the finished card. I love that it has sparkle and shine from the gold paper and the sequins. Moving on to card number 2, I will be using 3 pattern papers from the kit. I'm going to start with this darker pink that has some kind of geometric designs on it. And I'm going to adhere that directly to my card base. And I will end up needing to trim off the edges here. So I'm just going to be using my trimmer from Holtz. Then I will be adding the second pattern paper, which is a light pink watercolor paper. And when I am adhering that down, I am going to be using my Scrapbook Adhesives Easy Runner Grand. I'm using the dot version with these cards, but they also have kind of a lined version as well. I like both. I just have to tell myself to slow down when I'm gluing so the dots actually come off nicely. And I'm going to have to flip that around because I need it a little bit more. And I'm going to line up this pattern paper on the bottom and work my way up since this pattern paper is directional. Don't want the words upside down on my card. Then I will have some on the edge there that I will need to trim off with my Tim Holtz very teeny mini trimmer. Works really well for little things like this. I had to give it kind of a push there to get through all that paper. All right. Then I have 3 butterflies that I'm going to add to the center strip of pattern paper. And I'm going to be using my dimensional dots from the kit and add just a little bit to the top wing. And then I will take my Barely Art liquid glue and kind of give each butterfly a little bit of a bend and put the liquid glue on the center by the body of the butterfly. That way I know that it's not going to come off the card. It's adhered. And the wings will have a little bit of dimension, but not too much to make the card bulky. And I started with the center butterfly just to ensure that things were somewhat even. And I'll just push them down, make sure things are somewhat straight. Then I will take a little bit of my scrap here and see which one would work best for this card. You really can't go too wrong with the colors or different papers from the kit because they do match, and the card designers do a pretty good job making sure that things could go together. Even if they aren't the same color, things go well. If you're interested in purchasing any of the Spellbinders monthly club items, I do have a link in the description. If you use my link, I do get a little bit of kickback, but you don't have to. This is a really great way to use up some extra pattern paper and add interest to the inside of the card. Otherwise, you'll end up hoarding pattern paper everywhere. I will sometimes use some of the smaller scraps that I have from other cards and either layer them and mat them with different cardstocks or use them inside cards just to make sure that I'm using up what I have. If I'm going to make a card with similar pattern paper, I think it works well to put them together. Sometimes I will use my Fiskars scissors there just to trim it off if it's a little bit, just a little overhang and it's not a thick piece of paper to trim. With the thicker ones, I like to use my paper cutter. And I will add a little bit of shine to this card with the sequins. I like to work in odd numbers. This one ends up getting 7 sequins. This could be for really any occasion since there is not a sentiment on it. Maybe a birthday or a thank you, a hello, thinking of you, maybe even a get well soon card. And that is my finished card. Now I will make card number 3. With this card, I wanted to use some of the scraps from the kit, including the piece of paper that comes with the die cut pack. So that's what that cream paper is on the bottom there. I'm going to use that just to make the pattern paper that's going on top of it, that panel, just a little bit more sturdy. And I will line up the pattern paper with the edge of that scrap and just press it down. And I have another scrap of that striped paper, and I'm going to line it up. There will be a little bit of a gap in the middle, but no one will ever see it because I'm putting another piece on over the middle. Then I'm going to take my Tim Holtz trimmer and cut off the excess. I like to use every bit of the kit as long as I like the card, so that's why I'm using the extra thicker paper from even the die cut ephemera. Use it up, why not? It's better than it going to the garbage. Then with the thicker paper on the back, I'm going to be gluing with the Barely Art glue and just making sure there's enough glue there so it's not going to fall off. And I'm going to center that in the center of my card. And I've chosen to use somewhat of a salmon orangish color of cardstock for the background to kind of bring out the orange color in the sentiment and the woman. The sentiment on this card says, "Thinking of you." I just glued the woman down with the Barely Art glue, and I'm going to use some foam tape to pop up the sentiment, just to add a little bit of dimension to the card, since the rest of it is quite flat. Then I'm going to take a scrap piece of pattern paper from the kit and put that in the center. I made 2 cards using this design. Now for my final card. I have already added the pattern paper to the back of the card, added a little bit of the inside design, and then added a panel with that scripted gold lettering and a piece of the pink geometric design. I did die cut out a circle from a scrap of paper, and my die hung over the edge, so I have a circle that has a bit of a missing piece, and that's just fine because that's how I wanted it to be. I'm going to turn my Misti around here and stamp on my sentiment. Since I want my sentiment to not have any issues, I'm going to be using my Misti just in case I need to restamp my sentiment. I loved all the sentiments from the card kit. I thought that they were pretty appropriate for different occasions. And for this card, I chose Never Lose Hope. I loved the loops and the H and the P. So I'm going to just kind of position the stamp how I'd like it. Make sure my magnets are not going to be in the way. Then I will close my Misti to adhere the stamp to the window, making sure it's straight. All right, then I'm going to stamp on the sentiment directly to that circle. Then I will stamp with my Archival Jet Black ink from Ranger, and I will stamp this image twice, or the sentiment twice, because the first time wasn't quite dark enough, so I'm really glad that I used my Misti. Otherwise I either would have had to just leave it as it is or have to re-die cut another circle. And I don't like using stamp blocks for sentiments for that reason, just because sometimes they don't turn out quite right, and then it can kind of mess things up, and I cannot stamp twice in one spot. It is nearly impossible. But not to say that I never use stamp blocks. I do. I just sometimes when it's a situation like this with a die cut piece that I don't want to have to redo, and a rather large sentiment. I do not want to restamp that. So I will position my florals on the pattern paper how I'd like them to be. I'm going to use my pencil just to kind of put a few little small lines to line up where I would like it to go. After that, I will remove them and add some of the Barely Art glue to the back of the pieces and line up the florals using my marks. And I will end up sticking this little piece right kind of behind that top one. I will also use my Barely Art glue to glue down my circle, and I will line that up with the pink pattern paper. And I will add a butterfly, and I will do my usual butterfly routine by adding a little bit of foam to the top wing. Doesn't have to be a perfect square, no one will ever see it. And then I bend the butterfly and add liquid glue to the body. Little bubble. Then I will push down on the body of the butterfly to adhere it to the card. And lastly, I will add that little flower to the inside and add sequins to the rest of my card for glitter, pizzazz, sparkle, whatever you'd like to call it. So thank you so much for watching the video. I'm still making cards with this kit, so we'll see what else I can come up with here. To show you the rest of the cards, to kind of recap what we've done here so far. Here's the 5th and the 4th card. Love the pink. And the 1st card. And the 2nd and 3rd card. Let me know what card is your favorite. If you would like to leave a comment, that would be kind of nice to know. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'll come back, I'd love to have you for part 6, and that will be my final part for the February card kit of the month from Spellbinders. Thank you. Bye.